Control begins with attention. It continues with judgment. It matures through routine. The Stoics taught that the ruling faculty, your capacity to choose, sets the direction of life. Every day opens with impressions, requests, delays, opportunities, and frustrations. You choose the frame. You choose the response. You build the system that keeps you aligned with what you say you value. This is practical, testable work. It shows up in how you speak to yourself, how you plan a day, how you handle setbacks, and how you close the evening. The Stoics understood that life would not always follow desire or expectation, but they believed that mastery over the mind could give mastery over how life is lived. Mental control is not achieved through wishful thinking. It is built through repeated training. Just as the body grows stronger through exercise, the mind grows disciplined through deliberate practice. The Stoics approached this with precision. They treated the mind as a tool that must be sharpened and cared for. The mind left unattended will default to habit, impulse, and emotion. It will drift into distraction, replay the past, or project fear into the future. The Stoics trained their minds to resist these pulls. They learned to pause before reacting, to question before accepting, and to anchor themselves to principles instead of moods. Taking control of the mind is not about never feeling stress or doubt. It is about managing them with clarity. It is about keeping your thoughts aligned with reason, so you can act with stability regardless of the noise around you. This video offers 7 core ways to take control of your mind. Each one is concrete. Each one has drills and checkpoints. The chapters form a single path. You can start from any point, but you gain the strongest effect when you apply them together. The goal is a reliable method you can use under pressure at work, at home, and in moments when emotion surges. The narrative that follows is the story of daily practice: waking, directing attention, filtering thoughts, speaking with precision, deciding with structure, preparing for hardship, and aligning choices with values. It is the story of you ruling your mind with competence. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Control your attention. Attention is the gateway to the mind, serving as the entry point for every idea, memory, observation, and emotional state. What you consistently choose to focus on shapes not only the quality of your thinking, but also the tone of your inner life and the outcomes of your decisions. The Stoics understood that the mind cannot process every thought, image, and signal without strain or dilution. They treated attention as a finite and valuable resource, worthy of careful protection in the same way one safeguards physical health, personal energy, and time. Guarding attention was a deliberate daily discipline that preserved clarity, strengthened reasoning, and reinforced emotional stability. In the pace of modern life, the pull on attention is constant and often relentless. Devices, notifications, advertisements, and the endless stream of visual and auditory signals compete for mental space every waking hour. Conversations, obligations, and even silent moments are often filled with the noise of scattered thoughts. When attention is fragmented, ideas lose their depth. Connections between thoughts weaken, and decisions become reactive rather than intentional. Time is consumed in fragments rather than invested in meaningful stretches. The first step toward true mental control is to choose, with awareness, where your attention will rest, and to consciously remove it from distractions that do not add value to your goals, relationships, or personal growth. This requires vigilance, regularly noticing what is entering your awareness and deciding on the spot whether it has earned the right to stay there. The Stoics made this into an intentional and highly disciplined habit of selective awareness, a skill they considered essential to mental mastery. They trained themselves to deliberately turn toward what nourished reason, character, and virtue, while decisively turning away from anything irrelevant or corrosive to the work of the soul. This was not a casual preference, but a conscious and repeated act of mental direction. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about the importance of keeping his mind clear of unnecessary thoughts, describing the need to empty it of noise that contributes nothing to virtue, wisdom, or useful action. He viewed this as an active commitment, one that demanded daily effort, reflection, and self-correction. Training in selective awareness begins with establishing firm, non-negotiable boundaries for your day, clear lines that protect your focus from being diluted or hijacked. This is a conscious act that starts before the day begins, in the quiet planning stage, where you decide which activities, conversations, and sources of information will be granted access to your mental space. The process requires honest evaluation, identifying what consistently provokes unhelpful emotion without offering constructive insight, and removing these influences from your mental diet entirely. It also demands replacing the habitual consumption of shallow, distracted content with forms of engagement that actively strengthen the mind, reading with attentiveness, reflecting deeply on personal experiences, writing out your thoughts, and observing the world with purpose rather than passivity. Over time, these choices alter the very quality of what your mind processes and, by extension, the quality of your thinking itself. To strengthen this discipline further, create structured mental checkpoints at intervals throughout the day. These checkpoints can be as short as 10 seconds or as long as a single deep breath, but they serve a powerful function: to bring awareness back to the present and to your chosen priorities. During these pauses, ask yourself with complete honesty, is my attention aligned with the most important aims I set for today? If the answer is no, redirect it immediately, calmly, without hesitation, and without self-criticism. These moments of awareness act like anchors dropped into turbulent waters, preventing your mind from drifting too far from its intended course. Even the shortest pause can break the momentum of distraction, and regular practice makes the mind increasingly skilled at returning to its chosen direction. With enough repetition, this correction becomes instinctive, and wandering attention is recognized almost instantly before it can pull you off course. Each morning, take deliberate time to choose the top 3 priorities most worthy of your attention, those essential aims that, if achieved or meaningfully advanced, will make the day productive and aligned with your larger goals. These could be clearly defined tasks that move an important project forward, targeted areas of study where you wish to build mastery, meaningful personal relationships that deserve intentional investment, or central reflections and questions you want to keep alive in your thoughts. The selection process itself is a form of mental sharpening. It requires you to think clearly about what truly matters right now, rather than what simply demands your attention. Write these priorities down where you will see them frequently, on a note card, in your journal, taped prominently to your workspace, or programmed as scheduled reminders that appear at strategic points during the day. Treat these visible cues as anchors for your mind, guiding it back whenever it begins to drift. Revisit them multiple times over the course of the day, especially during transitions between tasks or in moments when you feel the pull toward unrelated, low-value activities such as impulsive scrolling, idle conversation, over-analysis of trivial issues, or chasing minor urgencies that are not part of your core plan. When you notice your attention slipping, treat it as a neutral signal, a prompt to return, rather than a cause for frustration. Pause, acknowledge the drift, and then guide yourself back to the chosen course with calm precision. The more often you repeat this cycle, the more efficiently your mind will execute it. Over weeks and months, the return to focus will happen more quickly, the pull of distractions will weaken noticeably, and your ability to sustain deep, consistent, and disciplined thought will solidify into one of your strongest personal assets. This disciplined return is not just a skill for productivity, it is a foundation for living each day with intentionality and self-command. Chapter 2. Master the pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a pause, a brief but decisive space in which your freedom resides. The Stoics regarded this space as one of the most important tools in a disciplined life. Without it, the mind reacts automatically, pulled by impulse, emotion, or ingrained habit. With it, the mind secures the precious seconds it needs to evaluate, choose, and respond with reason rather than instinct. This moment is the dividing line between living as a servant to impulse and living as a master of one's actions. Anger, fear, and anxiety often rise without warning, pressing for immediate expression in words, gestures, or decisions. They arrive with a powerful sense of urgency that can feel overwhelming, demanding that you act instantly and decide without measured thought. This is the very moment in which the pause becomes essential. It interrupts this urgent demand before it gains full momentum. The pause is a deliberate, stabilizing break that slows the automatic chain reaction between stimulus and response, preventing the almost reflexive link between feeling and action from locking into place. Even a single deep breath, taken consciously and with full presence, can be enough to loosen the grip of emotion and shift you into a state of greater clarity. That breath is more than a physical act. It functions as a mental and emotional buffer, a space in which you can step back, observe, and evaluate whether the action you are about to take is aligned with your deeper values, your long-term purpose, and the kind of person you aim to be in the world. Training this skill begins with cultivating constant and intentional awareness, a discipline that requires deliberate observation of both the mind and the body throughout the day. You start by noticing the earliest physical and mental signals of rising emotion. The tightening in the chest that warns of tension, the quickening of speech that signals haste, the narrowing of your visual field as focus becomes tunnel-like, the heat in the face that often comes with frustration or embarrassment, or even the subtle but sharp urge to defend, justify, or attack. Recognizing these signs early gives you the opportunity to intervene before emotion fully takes over. In these moments, instead of moving immediately toward action, you acknowledge the feeling without judgment, label it if possible, and observe it as if you were watching yourself from a slight distance, as an impartial witness. Then, you allow it to pass through your awareness before committing to a decision. This process is not avoidance, it is strategic self-command. Epictetus reminded his students that impressions will always arrive without warning and often with great force, but the mind retains absolute authority to accept them, reject them, or place them aside for later examination. To strengthen the pause, weave it deliberately into your daily life until it becomes second nature, an almost automatic response whenever emotion rises. Begin by practicing it in both low-stakes and high-stakes moments so that the skill is fully prepared when you need it most. In the smallest interactions, pausing before answering a casual question, before sending a quick message, before interrupting someone, train yourself to insert a conscious moment of stillness. This is the groundwork for more challenging scenarios, such as responding to criticism in a meeting, deciding how to handle sudden conflict, delivering difficult feedback, or navigating an unexpected personal challenge. The more you rehearse the pause in everyday moments, the more your mind will learn to insert it automatically when greater pressures arise. With consistent repetition, the pause becomes a natural reflex rather than an effort, acting as a shield that filters your actions through reason before they are released into the world. This preparation is invaluable. It makes it easier to prevent costly mistakes born from impatience. avoid heated exchanges that can damage trust, and resist impulsive decisions that pull you away from your larger aims. The pause is not about hesitation for its own sake. It is about deliberately creating the mental space to act with precision, principle, and foresight. In that space, you separate what you feel from what you choose, ensuring your response is guided by clarity rather than the inertia of emotion. The next time you feel provoked, whether by criticism, delay, or a perceived offense, commit to a structured process that reinforces your control. Begin by noticing the physical signals, the quickened breath, the tension in your shoulders, the subtle shift in your voice. Count slowly to 3 before acting or speaking, letting each number deepen your perspective and calm your body. During those seconds, breathe deeply and evenly to anchor your awareness. Consciously release tension from your muscles and direct your focus to the present moment rather than imagined consequences or past grievances. Then ask yourself with clarity, what is the exact outcome I want here? Will the words or actions I am about to choose bring me closer to that outcome, or will they create unnecessary harm, friction, or complication? This single question, placed firmly inside the pause, can completely change the course of the interaction. Many situations that begin in potential conflict can, through this discipline, shift into measured dialogue, constructive resolution, or at the very least, a decision you can reflect on later with composure and self-respect. Chapter 3. Separate facts from interpretations. Events themselves are neutral in nature, carrying no built-in judgment, intention, or emotional weight. They simply occur without assigning themselves as good or bad. It is the meaning you consciously or unconsciously attach to them that creates your emotional response. The Stoics disciplined themselves to look first at the bare, uncolored facts before allowing interpretation to shape their perception. They understood that separating fact from interpretation is an act of mental strength that shields against unnecessary distress, confusion, and impulsive reaction, enabling the mind to remain steady in changing circumstances. Consider, for example, a scenario where someone speaks harshly to you. The raw fact is simply that certain words were spoken in a particular tone at a specific time and place. That is all that can be confirmed without personal interpretation. Your interpretation, however, might be that the person disrespected you, was angry with you, or intended harm. The fact remains objective and verifiable. The interpretation is subjective, shaped by your personal history, current emotional state, prior interactions with that person, and the assumptions you carry about their intentions. Sometimes these assumptions are influenced by unrelated experiences, by a pattern you think you see, or even by your own insecurities. By training yourself to consistently identify the difference between fact and interpretation, you greatly reduce the risk of reacting to something that exists only in your perception, not in reality. This preserves the clarity needed to respond with reason, and it prevents you from compounding a situation through misjudgment. Marcus Aurelius made this practice a deliberate and regular habit, reminding himself repeatedly throughout the day to view events exactly as they are, free of unnecessary emotional coloring, imagined harm, or exaggerated importance. He trained his mind to return to the raw substance of reality before allowing interpretation to take shape. He recognized that the mind's natural tendency is to weave a story instantly, to explain, categorize, and assign meaning to events in a way that feels certain, even if that certainty is false. But such a story is never inevitable. It is an option you can either accept or refuse. Meaning is not irrelevant, yet it must be selected with care and intention, not absorbed unconsciously from habit, bias, or fleeting mood. When you make a conscious decision about the meaning you attach to an event, you become the architect of your perspective rather than its passive recipient. This choice gives you greater stability in your judgments, composure when under pressure, and decisions that are measured rather than reflexive. To strengthen this habit, approach challenging situations with a disciplined, methodical exercise. Start by writing down the facts as if you were a neutral observer, documenting them for an official report or court record. Keep the language literal and exact. Avoid adjectives, assumptions, and any phrasing that implies opinion. List the who, what, when, and where without speculating on the why. Once the facts are recorded, create a separate section for your interpretation. Pay careful attention to the moment emotion begins to shape or color your version of events. Ask yourself if the interpretation you have given is the only plausible explanation, or whether other perspectives could explain the same facts. Aim to generate at least one alternative interpretation, even if it challenges your initial view. This step forces you to consider that your current perspective may not be complete or entirely accurate. By recognizing that your interpretation is only one of many possible ones, you release the mental rigidity that fuels overreaction and narrow thinking. This act alone loosens the grip of certainty that often blinds you to other perspectives, creating mental space for a more constructive, flexible, and adaptable response. It shifts you from a defensive posture to an investigative one, where you are open to gathering more information, asking clarifying questions, and considering possibilities you might have dismissed too quickly. With repeated practice, this approach strengthens your ability to separate objective reality from subjective interpretation, sharpening discernment and reducing the sway of personal bias. Over time, the influence of emotional reactions diminishes, replaced by a steadier capacity for reflection before action. The result is a mind that is less reactive in moments of pressure, more deliberate in choosing its responses, and increasingly capable of adapting to a broad spectrum of situations without losing balance, composure, or clarity in judgment. Chapter 4. Train in voluntary discomfort. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort as a deliberate discipline to strengthen the mind against fear, dependence, and the erosion of resilience that comes from excessive ease. They recognized that when the mind grows too accustomed to comfort, it begins to avoid challenge, and avoidance inevitably weakens the capacity to endure hardship. By willingly stepping into small, controlled hardships, they reduced the mental shock that real adversity can bring. These exercises served as rehearsals for life's inevitable difficulties, creating a tested and adaptable mindset. Seneca advised spending certain days living with less, choosing simpler food, rougher clothing, and fewer conveniences, not to punish oneself, but to prove to the mind that comfort is not a necessity. Such days build confidence in your ability to endure, adapt, and remain calm under less than ideal conditions. When a difficulty arrives without warning, you have already prepared your mental state to meet it without panic or despair, because you have walked that road before on your own terms. In the modern world, voluntary discomfort can be expanded into a broad set of practices that challenge both the body and the mind in ways that are controlled, deliberate, and safe. These can include fasting for a full day to strengthen your control over appetite, walking or cycling long distances, instead of using motor transport to reduce reliance on convenience, limiting or eliminating digital device usage for set periods to regain mental clarity, sleeping on a firmer or less comfortable surface to train adaptability, taking cold showers to build tolerance for discomfort, waking earlier than usual every day, including weekends, to develop consistency, and committing to physically demanding activities such as long hikes, extended strength training sessions, or endurance exercises. You could also choose to spend time in quiet isolation without entertainment or external stimulation, as a way to strengthen patience and internal focus. The aim of these practices is to prepare the mind and body to operate effectively without constant ease or stimulation, so that unexpected hardship feels less foreign and less overwhelming when it arrives. Each act of voluntary discomfort is a small but significant test of your independence from comfort and your reliance on resilience instead. When you select a practice, commit to it with the intention of making it a long-term part of your personal training, not just a one-time experiment. Repetition is essential for building resilience and reinforcing the mental benefits. Choose a form of discomfort that stretches your limits without putting your health or safety at risk. The ideal practice should be difficult enough to challenge your current habits, but manageable enough that you can repeat it regularly. As you engage in the chosen exercise, remain highly attentive to your internal state. Observe the pace at which your mind begins to search for an escape or a reason to quit. Pay attention to the language your thoughts use when framing the difficulty, whether they present it as unbearable, pointless, or beyond your capacity. Notice the justifications your mind constructs to convince you to return to ease. Document these mental patterns if possible, either during the practice or immediately afterward, to deepen your awareness of them. When the urge to quit surfaces, resist the immediate impulse to stop. Allow yourself to continue for a set period, even if it is only a few extra seconds at first. As you remain in the experience, study how the discomfort behaves over time. You will often find that it does not remain at the same intensity. In many cases, the initial peak of difficulty gives way to a more stable state where the body and mind adjust. Recognizing this shift is important because it proves that endurance often brings its own relief, even without removing the source of discomfort. This understanding builds trust in your capacity to remain steady under strain. During the exercise, keep your attention on the sensations and thoughts that arise. Track the moment when the mind begins to negotiate with itself, offering reasons to stop or framing the situation as intolerable. These mental negotiations reveal much about your habits, your tolerance for challenge, and the ways you justify avoiding effort. By observing without acting, you teach yourself to separate the sensation of wanting to stop from the decision to stop. This separation is where control develops. The impact of this type of training extends into every aspect of life. Practicing voluntary discomfort in a safe, controlled way strengthens your ability to face unexpected challenges with calm and composure. You build a habit of pausing before reacting and measuring your actions against your goals rather than your immediate feelings. Each repetition reinforces the connection between controlling physical impulses, like seeking warmth, rest, or convenience, and controlling mental impulses, such as impatience, anger, or avoidance. As this skill strengthens, the difference in how you respond to challenges becomes increasingly noticeable. Situations that once seemed overwhelming or exhausting now appear within your capacity to handle. You develop the ability to stay rooted in the moment without feeling an urgent need to escape. This shift is the result of repeated exposure to discomfort under controlled conditions, where you have trained both mind and body to stay composed while stress is present. The more often you experience this process, the more your nervous system learns that discomfort does not signal danger. It is simply a state to be managed. Over time, these moments of practiced endurance form a deep reserve of mental stability. You acquire the habit of meeting strain with observation first, followed by deliberate action rather than automatic reaction. Discomfort becomes something you recognize as temporary and changeable, something that can be worked through without losing control. This understanding brings a sense of independence from external conditions. You are less influenced by the ups and downs of circumstances because you know you can remain functional and decisive regardless of them. This growing confidence applies directly to high-pressure situations. You can manage conflict with patience because you have learned to separate the discomfort of tension from the decision of how to respond. You can maintain focus on long-term goals because you have practiced holding your course even when faced with short-term challenges or fatigue. The stability you gain from voluntary discomfort extends into professional environments, personal relationships, and moments of significant change. Ultimately, the discipline built through these exercises becomes one of your most dependable resources. It reinforces self-control, strengthens your ability to think clearly under pressure, and ensures that your actions remain aligned with your principles. Whether the challenge is a sudden crisis or a drawn-out period of adversity, you have trained yourself to meet it with steadiness, clarity, and endurance. This consistent capacity transforms how you live, turning resilience into a practiced skill rather than a reaction you hope will appear when needed. Chapter 5. Direct self-talk with purpose. Every person carries an inner voice that shapes how they perceive the world, themselves, and the challenges they face. This voice can serve as a source of strength or as a constant undermining influence. The Stoics placed deliberate attention on training this inner voice so that it aligned with reason, clarity, and virtue. They recognized that in moments of difficulty, the words you speak to yourself can either steady your mind or push it further into disorder. By shaping this self-talk with care, they kept their thinking clear under pressure and ensured their actions remained guided by principle. Self-talk operates continuously, often without conscious notice, forming an unbroken commentary that influences perception, judgment, and behavior. It comments on what you see, anticipates what may happen next, and passes judgment on what has already taken place. This constant stream often runs in the background, shaping emotions and decisions without deliberate approval. If this inner dialogue is left without discipline, it can recycle patterns of fear, anger, doubt, or self-criticism, reinforcing unhelpful habits over time. When deliberately shaped, it transforms into a consistent guide that reinforces your values, strengthens your resolve, and keeps you composed during stress. This transformation is not instant. It requires conscious awareness of your thoughts, deliberate repetition of chosen phrases, and the willingness to interrupt and redirect unhelpful mental patterns each time they appear. Epictetus advised that you should speak to yourself as a wise teacher would speak to a capable student who needs direction, firm, clear, and supportive. This means framing your inner dialogue in a way that is instructional, constructive, and focused on immediate, actionable steps, rather than vague criticism or unfocused reassurance. For example, rather than thinking, "I cannot handle this," you might direct yourself with, "I will take the next step I can control," or "focus on the action available now." Such language gives structure to your thinking, provides clear direction, and strengthens confidence in your ability to act effectively. To cultivate this discipline, begin by actively observing the tone, speed, and content of your self-talk throughout the day, noting also the emotional charge, body language, and mental images that accompany it. Expand your awareness to include subtle changes in posture, facial expression, and breathing patterns, as these often reveal the depth of your mental state. Notice which words and phrases surface automatically, particularly in moments of frustration, fatigue, uncertainty, high pressure, or even when you face success or praise. Pay attention to how these phrases influence your mood, energy, confidence, and decision-making in real time. Keep a detailed written log, recording them at the end of each day, along with notes about the context, the specific situations that triggered them, and your immediate physical or emotional reactions. Over time, this record will help you identify recurring patterns, deeply ingrained mental habits, and environmental factors that tend to provoke unhelpful thoughts. Assess which phrases consistently weaken your mindset, drain energy, reduce focus, or create hesitation and distraction. Be precise in identifying language that limits action, narrows perspective, or promotes avoidance. Replace them with concise, practical reminders grounded in reason, clearly aligned with your chosen principles, and framed in language that promotes decisive forward movement. Keep these reminders visible in a journal, on a card, on your desk, on your phone lock screen, or even as audio notes you can replay. Integrate them into multiple points in your daily rhythm. During morning preparation to set tone, midday check-ins to reset direction, and evening reflection to reinforce progress and make adjustments. Practice repeating them daily with deliberate intention, and make a point to use them actively in situations where your mind would normally fall into doubt, overreaction, passivity, unnecessary self-criticism, or unfocused overthinking. With consistent repetition in varied circumstances, across both calm and challenging environments, these constructive phrases will gradually override old, unhelpful patterns. They will become your default mental response, shaping perception, regulating emotions, and guiding actions with increasing stability and purpose. This mental rewiring will not only refine your internal dialogue, but also sharpen judgment under pressure, improve problem-solving speed and accuracy, strengthen emotional control, and build resilience that holds steady through both minor disruptions and significant trials. Over time, this process ensures that your thoughts work in service of your values and long-term aims, helping you remain aligned with the person you are committed to becoming in every circumstance you face. Chapter 6. Strengthen emotional awareness. Emotional awareness is the ability to recognize and accurately identify what you are feeling in the moment without being swept away by the force of that emotion. The Stoics understood that emotions themselves are not inherently harmful. What causes trouble is the unexamined and uncontrolled expression of them. By training yourself to observe emotions as they arise, you gain the ability to respond to them with reason instead of being directed by impulse. To develop emotional awareness, start by pausing as soon as you notice even a subtle shift in your mood, physical energy, or pattern of thoughts. This could be a sudden tightening in your chest, a drop in enthusiasm, a burst of irritation, or an unexplainable restlessness. Bring your attention fully to the experience and name the emotion as precisely as possible: anger, frustration, sadness, anticipation, pride, anxiety, relief, or disappointment. The act of labeling is a conscious interruption that slows the automatic momentum of reaction. It shifts you into the role of observer rather than participant, allowing you to evaluate the feeling with a degree of separation. From this position, you can study what triggered it, assess the strength of the response, and determine whether the emotion is proportionate to the actual event or amplified by unrelated factors, memories, or assumptions. Once the emotion is identified, record your observations in a dedicated journal. Write down the exact event, your immediate emotional reaction, and any physical sensations that accompanied it: changes in breathing, muscle tension, posture, or facial expression. Then note the sequence of thoughts that followed the feeling, paying attention to how they influenced your perception of the situation. Over time, these entries will reveal patterns, specific triggers, habitual interpretations, and recurring emotional tendencies that arise under similar conditions. These patterns are valuable because they show you where preparation is possible. If you know certain situations consistently provoke impatience, defensiveness, or discouragement, you can create strategies in advance to manage those moments without losing balance. The habit of recording and reviewing emotions also improves the speed and sharpness with which you can identify them as they begin to surface. With regular practice, you start detecting the earliest signals, slight changes in breathing, muscle tension, posture, or thought patterns, before they build momentum. This early recognition allows you to interrupt the automatic chain of reaction that often follows strong feelings. It creates a mental gap between emotion and action, a space in which you have the freedom to consider your next move rather than reacting without thought. This gap functions like a buffer, protecting your decisions from being dictated by temporary states of mind. In that space, you can evaluate what the emotion is telling you, how it aligns with your priorities, and whether the intensity matches the reality of the situation. Emotions then serve as useful data points, indicating what matters to you, signaling that something in your surroundings requires attention, or revealing how a relationship or event is affecting you. They only serve this role effectively when handled with clarity, deliberate observation, and a disciplined approach to response. As you continue to develop and refine this practice, your stability in high-pressure environments increases noticeably. You find that situations once capable of throwing you off balance, such as heated discussions, unexpected changes in plans, or urgent demands, now feel more manageable. This is because you have trained yourself to treat emotions as one input among many in your decision-making process, giving them consideration without allowing them to dominate your choices. You stay engaged and aware in the moment, yet you remain in control of how you respond. This separation strengthens your composure in diverse circumstances, critical negotiations, challenging leadership responsibilities, moments of personal disagreement, or times when quick thinking under stress is essential. Every time you navigate such moments with steady control, you reinforce the habit of making deliberate choices that are guided by reason, grounded in your principles, and aimed toward meaningful outcomes rather than immediate emotional satisfaction. Over months and years of consistent application, emotional awareness evolves from a deliberate step-by-step process into an instinctive skill that operates naturally in the background of your thoughts and actions. You begin to detect patterns in your emotional responses with greater accuracy, seeing not only the emotions themselves, but also the underlying conditions, thoughts, and environmental cues that tend to trigger them. This clarity enables you to predict where challenges are likely to arise and create strategies to address them in advance. Such preparation allows you to maintain composure in situations that might once have led to impulsive words or actions. You develop the ability to adjust your mindset before the emotion reaches its peak, reducing the risk of being caught off guard by sudden intensity. Your capacity to recover from emotional spikes also becomes more refined. Instead of remaining unsettled for hours or days, you shorten the recovery time significantly. This quick return to balance preserves your mental energy and keeps you focused on what matters in the moment. Decision-making becomes faster and more precise because your thoughts are not clouded by lingering emotional reactions. You assess situations more objectively, weigh options more effectively, and act with confidence in your chosen course. This improved clarity serves you in a variety of circumstances, from resolving conflicts with professionalism to making strategic decisions under time pressure. The influence of this discipline extends beyond moments of obvious stress. It reaches into the routine, everyday experiences that shape your overall quality of life. You handle delays, interruptions, and competing demands with greater patience and efficiency. Minor frustrations that once disrupted your focus lose their impact, allowing you to maintain steady progress toward your goals. You also begin to notice subtle shifts in your interactions with others. Your communication becomes more deliberate, your listening more attentive, and your responses more measured. This steadiness improves trust and cooperation in personal and professional relationships. As emotional awareness becomes fully integrated into your daily thinking, it shapes the way you approach every interaction, decision, and challenge. Emotions no longer function as unpredictable forces that push you in different directions. They become tools you can read, interpret, and apply with purpose. You understand when to act on them, when to set them aside, and how to use their energy constructively. This transformation strengthens your ability to navigate difficulties with composure, build and maintain strong relationships, and live in alignment with your values over the long term. In this way, emotional awareness becomes not only a skill, but a defining aspect of your character, guiding you with clarity and stability in all areas of life. Chapter 7. Mastering the Focused Mind. The mind is constantly bombarded by a continuous stream of information, competing demands, distractions, and shifting priorities that can fragment attention and drain energy. Without deliberate focus, the mind scatters across many tasks without making real progress, leaving you feeling busy yet unproductive. The Stoics understood that a disciplined mind must be guided toward what is essential and protected from being pulled into unproductive paths. Mastering focus involves developing the ability to sustain attention on what matters most in the present moment, maintaining that concentration until the work is complete. To begin strengthening focus, start each day by setting clear, specific priorities that are directly linked to your larger aims. Take a few minutes to define the single most important task or objective that will create meaningful progress toward your long-term goals, and decide in advance that this task will receive your best and most focused effort before anything else competes for your attention. Once chosen, protect it from distraction and delay. This requires a conscious decision to work without shifting to more comfortable but less important activities. It also involves taking deliberate steps to identify and remove common distractions, silencing non-essential notifications, clearing your workspace of clutter, creating an environment that encourages deep work, and organizing your schedule to reserve uninterrupted time blocks for the task. When your mind inevitably begins to wander, train yourself to recognize the shift in attention as early as possible. The sooner you detect this change, the faster you can step in to redirect your focus toward the task at hand with steady, deliberate effort. Treat each return to focus as an intentional exercise in discipline rather than an inconvenience. This perspective allows every lapse to become an opportunity for strengthening mental endurance. Over time, the repeated cycle of noticing a drift in attention, reclaiming focus, and moving forward with intention creates a noticeable reduction in the gap between distraction and redirection. As that gap becomes smaller, more of your energy is preserved for meaningful and productive work. This process evolves into a continuous loop of skill building, where each repetition reinforces your capacity to remain engaged for longer stretches without being derailed by unproductive diversions. A mind trained for sustained focus produces benefits far beyond higher productivity. It cultivates resilience, steadiness, and composure when faced with pressure, uncertainty, or rapid change. By concentrating fully on one task, you create a mental environment free from competing thoughts, which prevents the accumulation of mental clutter that often breeds stress, confusion, and indecision. This mental clarity sharpens your ability to break down complex problems into manageable parts, evaluate them logically, and execute well-considered decisions without being swayed by distractions or impulses. It also strengthens your capacity to respond thoughtfully in moments that demand accuracy and precision, whether those moments occur in high-stakes professional projects, sensitive personal matters, or deeply meaningful conversations. Remaining fully present in these situations ensures your judgment stays sharp, your actions reflect careful reasoning, and your choices move you in the direction you intend. Over time, this approach builds a mental habit of steadiness that remains consistent regardless of the external pressures you face. Sustaining this level of discipline requires intentional management of mental energy. It means designing your daily routine so that focus is preserved, not drained. Incorporating structured pauses throughout the day allows you to step away from tasks before fatigue has the chance to diminish performance. These pauses should be brief and restorative, controlled breathing to steady the mind, light stretching to release tension, mindful walking to recenter your awareness, or a simple, enjoyable activity that refreshes without fragmenting your attention. By stepping away in this purposeful way, you maintain the mental freshness needed for prolonged concentration. When you return to the task, your thinking is sharper, your attention is more stable, and your ability to sustain focus for longer periods is strengthened. This routine prevents the gradual erosion of energy and ensures that your mental clarity remains intact even during extended periods of effort. With consistent and persistent practice, focus transitions from being a conscious, deliberate effort into an instinctive and natural state of mind that operates with little friction and growing fluidity, adapting seamlessly to different contexts and challenges. Over time, distractions steadily lose their influence as your ability to remain anchored to the task at hand deepens, becoming part of your default mode of thinking, acting, and deciding. You begin to identify priorities with sharper clarity, weighing them not only in relation to your immediate needs, but also against your long-term vision, values, and the larger narrative of your life's direction. Commitments are followed through with a calm yet unshakable determination, grounded in a clear understanding of their significance and the role each plays in your progress. Each task is approached with intentional precision, broken down into purposeful steps, and executed with continuous awareness of how it connects to the broader objectives you are pursuing. Every action is weighed for both its immediate outcome and its long-range contribution toward advancing a larger purpose, ensuring that no effort is wasted or misaligned. This cultivated ability to direct and sustain attention becomes a dependable mental instrument, capable of serving you in moments of high pressure, rapid change, or demanding complexity, as well as in the steady rhythm of daily routines. It supports consistent effectiveness, reinforces both intuitive and reasoned decision-making, and enables the disciplined pursuit of meaningful, long-term goals without being pulled off course by passing distractions, shifting circumstances, or fleeting impulses. Over months and years, this discipline shapes far more than your professional output. It gradually defines your entire way of living, influencing the structure of your days, the quality of your relationships, and the steadiness of your internal state. It fosters stability in your habits, anchors you in principles you have consciously chosen, and reinforces the values you stand by, even in times of uncertainty or challenge. It ensures that your actions remain aligned with the vision you have set for your life, acting as a steady compass to guide you through both predictable seasons and unpredictable changes, maintaining clarity and purpose regardless of the conditions ahead.